So it's been a couple weeks. It's about 2 to 3 weeks since I've done the podcast, and I gotta say I've missed it. I've just been really wrapped up with school, but I just finished my program, so there's a lot more free time that I now have. And that leads us to today's podcast. There is a lot to discuss. We're going to kick it off with CinemaCon. So CinemaCon, for those of you who don't know, is this sort of big event that happens every year. I'm pretty sure it happens every year in Las Vegas. I know for this year it's in Las Vegas. And basically what it is all the major film studios, Warner Brothers, Sony, Disney, Paramount, Universal, they gather and they essentially present to all the movie theater chains and the audience their upcoming projects and the things that they've been working on that and the people there get to have a first look. Now typically whatever they showcase is exclusive to that event. Like for example, if they show a trailer for an upcoming Spider-Man movie or whatever, more times than not, the people there are going to be the only people that are going to be able to see that, right? Now, there have been a few cases where they've released the trailer, a couple months afterwards or whatnot. So we could see that, but people are still allowed to talk about what they've seen. So I'm going to go off of the descriptions that I've heard. Obviously, I'm not in Las Vegas. I'm not at CinemaCon. Way too expensive for me, and also I live in Canada, so it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to get down there. But one day I would love to go there, hopefully down the line. But anyways, let's talk about the first day. This was Sony's panel. They talked about many things in regards to the upcoming Spider-Verse films that they've been working on, and some other things along the way. So let's kick it off with the sizzle reel. They had a sizzle reel showing like 5 seconds from all these different movies that they've been working on. And they actually showed footage for Kraven the Hunter, which I did not expect because this film, I think, has only been in production for like a month. Now, sure, that is enough time to get a trailer and whatnot. I just didn't expect for them to show anything. Now, I did expect them to talk about Kraven the Hunter, but they showed like a 5-10 second clip of apparently Aaron Taylor Johnson like running through the snow barefooted. And also a scene when he's sort of mantled on like the side of a van, which we've actually seen that scene kind of being filmed behind this. We've seen that scene filmed from behind the scenes footage from people's phones. And it's just sort of presented in a more cinematic way. And then we actually saw footage for Madam Webb, and apparently the footage was detailed as showing Dakota Johnson as Madam Webb, not in like her full costume or anything like that. And then it showed her co-star Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria. Then they continued on to discuss, they actually showed rather the first 10 minutes of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is a huge hit. And then they also announced the title of the film that's going to follow this sequel for Across the Spider-Verse. It's the third film in the trilogy. It's being titled Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, and that's going to come out in 2024. And then Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the upcoming film, that's going to be coming out next year, if my memory serves me correctly. And then a couple other things they announced that Venom 3 is in development. We all knew that. That's not a surprise. Hopefully they'll have Spider-Man team up in that film, but we'll have to see. I think Toxin might be the next villain, because they tease that with the sort of detective that was working closely with Eddie Brock. I'm not too familiar with the Toxin character. I know in the comics, I don't read the comics, but from what I've heard, he's another sort of symbiotic character, so no surprise there. Then we had the Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel that was announced. Not gonna lie, I'm not entirely interested in Ghostbusters. Haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, but for any of you who are interested, now you know that there's a sequel to that film. No surprise there either, because while I haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I think it did pretty well in the box office. So up next, they apparently showed the first 15 minutes of Bullet Train, directed by David Leitch. He's the director of films like I think he's directed all of the John Wick films. He directed Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, and the Hobbs and Shaw, Fast and Furious spinoff, which, quite frankly, I don't give a fuck about. Never seen any of those films. But for those of you who do, he's directed that film. So he's got some pretty good films in his repertoire. And I got to say, I'm really looking forward to this Bullet Train film. I would have loved to see the first 15 minutes. That trailer just really excited me. Just all the vibrant colors from the sort of, I think the film's supposed to take place obviously on a train, but I think it's going through Tokyo, or, I could be wrong about that. Or, and it's obviously the cast is incredible. It's got Brad Pitt, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the guy from Eternals. I can't quite remember his name. He's sort of like the mechanic guy who creates things in Eternals. And then it's got the actress from Deadpool 2. Funny enough, I think I don't want to get this wrong. Yeah, I don't want to get her name wrong, so I'm not even going to bother to sort of spitball it off the top of my head because I'm terrible at pronouncing names and terrible at remembering names, to be quite frank with you. But here's where it gets interesting. This is where I'm kind of left scratching my head. They announced the newest Spider-Man spin-off film they are currently developing is called El Muerto, and it's a Spider-Man spin-off about this sort of luchador, character. I really don't know anything about it. I've spoken to people that do read the comics. They really know nothing about him either. Apparently, he's only been in like a couple of runs of the Spider-Man comics, so really obscure character. But here is where it gets interesting. The actor who they've already cast to play the character is one of the famous musicians right now, Bad Bunny. I don't listen to Bad Bunny. It's not really my kind of music, but I understand he's a star. He's got like billions of streams. But how much acting experience does he really have? Right now, I don't want to sound pretentious. I myself want to be an actor. I have no fucking acting experience, but I'm just speaking for this film. Now, I do know that Bad Bunny is in the Bullet Train film. I actually thought he looked pretty compelling in that trailer. So who knows? He could be a incredible actor. This could be a Jamie Foxx situation where we see a musician who's really known for that kind of field transition to the big screen and kill it. And now most people really look at Jamie Foxx as an actor, right? Most people don't really look at him for his stuff that he's done in music, at least for my generation, for most people that I speak to. Now, I'm not saying Jamie Foxx is the first person and the only person that's done that. We've seen that many, many times. I don't know why he was just the first kind of example that came up off the top of my head. So who knows? This could be really, really good, but I'll be entirely honest with you. I think this is a bad decision, and I'm not really interested in this. And I think I'm kind of scared for the direction that Sony is taking the Spider-Man universe. It's sort of reminiscent of, back in 13, 14, when Andrew Garfield was our current Spider-Man, and we saw where they were going with their universe in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we all saw what happened to that franchise. It got canned. Now, this isn't going to get canned. They're clearly investing all their resources and all their time and energy into the Spider-Man universe. So, and who knows? We haven't seen this fully unfold. This could be incredible, right? This could be, the biggest competition that the MCU has ever seen, right? We have no idea. But I'm not entirely confident in where they're going. For me, the Venom films are just okay. I enjoyed, the first Venom. I think it was okay. I think the villain in that film, Riot, I think his name was, that Riz Ahmed played, which, by the way, Riz Ahmed, fantastic actor. If you haven't seen The Sound of Metal, go check it out. He's amazing in that. But yeah, his character and his villain, for me, I just thought wasn't very compelling. It wasn't very interesting. I don't think they developed a lot of character development for that character, and I felt like he was just sort of almost like a plot device just so Venom had somebody to fight in that film. Then transitioning to Venom Let There Be Carnage, I did enjoy that film a little bit more just for the simple fact that they had Carnage. However, though, I feel like they left a lot to desire in terms of the Cletus Cassidy character. Not Carnage. Carnage, I think, was great. I think he looked amazing. He was terrifying on screen, but Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, I would have liked to see them sort of delve a little bit deeper into his character. I know they addressed the whole, backstory of him being abused by his family and whatnot, but I would have liked to see a little bit more. So, yeah, overall, the Venom films were just, okay. The first one, kind of mid. The second one, I thought it was good. It was all right. But then Morbius, let's be honest, it's like universally hated by everyone, critics, fans, everyone. I didn't think it was terrible, but I also didn't think it was a good film. And the same writers of Morbius are actually the head writers of Madam Web. So take that as you will. I don't really understand that. But like I said, I don't want to be one of these people that just hates for the sake of hating, just to, I don't know, make a hot take just for the sake of making a hot take, right? If I'm going to have a hot take, it's because I genuinely believe in my hot take, and I present substance and I present reasoning behind it. So I'm not just trying to just be a hater. I want this Sony Spider-Man universe to be good. I want it to, right? Because these are really compelling villains. Maybe not El Muerto, but Venom, even Morbius, right? There was some redeeming qualities of Morbius. I thought when he was in full vampire form, I thought it looked pretty good. Yeah, but as for El Muerto, I'm not very excited for this film, and quite frankly, I'm worried for this film. I could be wrong. I may look back on this moment and laugh at myself. That remains to be seen. But as of right now, I'm not very interested. And I think the reason why Sony decided to go with Bad Bunny is for a few reasons. I mean, he could have killed it in an audition, although I don't even think he probably did an audition. I just think his name and his status and his personal brand alone just probably got him the part. I don't know that to be true or not. And that actually transitions me to my second point. I think because this El Muerto character is so obscure and so, I don't even want to say B level, because I think he's below that. I think like 0.5% of comic fans know this character. So I think because of that, because he's so unknown, I think they wanted to get a real big star to play the character to draw viewers in. Because while they may not know El Muerto, everybody knows Bad Bunny. So, you know, we've seen that before in Hollywood many, many times. But yeah, I don't want to hate on Bad Bunny. He could be great in this film. This may be one of the best comic book films of all time. It could also be one of the worst. We have no idea. But for now, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I'm not really looking forward to this too much. So here's what's going to happen. So CinemaCon still has like 3 or 4 days left in the event. I think today, right now, as we speak, is Warner Brothers presentation, which is super exciting. You know, I imagine we'll probably see some Batgirl footage, maybe see Michael Keaton in his full costume, maybe see some Flash, although I don't really know what's going to happen with that because of all the Ezra Miller controversy, so I don't really know what's going to happen with Flash, but I imagine we'll probably see some Aquaman 3 footage, possibly some Blue Beetle footage, who knows. That presentation is going to be pretty exciting as well. And then the next day, so what are we today? We are Monday, yeah. Are we Monday? Or are we Tuesday? I can't quite remember. We are... Come on. What's going on my phone here? Drawing a blank. Yeah, we're Tuesday. So today is Warner Brothers. Tomorrow, Disney. And then I think Universal... It's either Universal or Paramount after that, or they might be in the same day. I can't quite remember. But here's what's going to happen, because I really, really want to talk about this stuff, but I also want to get a podcast out this week just talking about some other things. So now I'm not saying this is going to happen for sure, but I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to finish this podcast, and then I'm going to put it on YouTube because you guys are obviously watching. Then I might do an audio-only podcast just strictly covering the rest of the week in regards to CinemaCon and the movies they announced, because the Disney one's going to be huge. And I was watching John Campea, who's my favorite, podcaster to watch, and he has, direct tie, or not direct ties, but he knows people that work directly in the industry and people that work at Sony, and he has connections. And he said, without giving away their names and whatnot, he said that he's spoken to people that work directly closely, or if not directly into Disney. He said that these people have told him that there are some really, really big things in store that Disney is going to be showcasing. Now, I don't think we're going to get a whole Phase 5 announcement. Definitely not. But we're probably going to see some really, really cool things. I imagine we'll probably get a first look at the Black Panther Wakanda Forever film that's coming out, I think, in November. Maybe even see some more Thor footage, which we're going to talk about in a second. So that's going to be really exciting. So I really want to talk about it, and I don't want to wait another whole week and a half to discuss it, because at that point, nobody's really going to care. The news is going to be out. They'll have enough time to marinate on it and be excited for it and then move on. So here's what I'm going to try and do. After today's podcast, this one's going to come out Sunday. And then maybe before that, I might do a strictly audio-only podcast just discussing CinemaCon. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen, because I do have a very, very busy week ahead of me. So we'll kind of see what happens. But I would like to do that. But now transitioning to the second topic is the Thor Love and Thunder. My bad, sorry, my dog is barking. The next topic we have is Thor Love and Thunder, the trailer. We've all been waiting for this trailer. People have been worried that this film is going to get delayed or something. I never thought that for a second. I just think Marvel, since Marvel has so much, properties coming out, they need to really release the trailers for each of these new upcoming projects accordingly, because they don't want to take away from whatever is either about to come out or already out, right? Like, for example, they wouldn't have dropped the Thor trailer the day that Moon Knight episode 1 came out, right? It would have totally taken away the shine and the discussion away from Moon Knight. So they decided that now was the right time. Kind of interesting because we're right around the corner from Doctor Strange 2, but for me, I thought they were either going to release it after Doctor Strange or did the No Way Home approach and release the trailer in the post-credit scene. But yeah, the trailer dropped. I thought it was great. Showed very little. We didn't see any Gore the God Butcher. We didn't see Christian Bale. For those of you who don't know, Gore the God Butcher is the villain of this film. He essentially is, quite literally, he kills gods. He butchers gods. Because apparently, from my brief understanding of the character, his family was killed by gods, whether it was sort of indirectly or directly. It could be a civil war situation when, because these gods were, operating and doing their things, casualties happened at the same time. I don't know. But he hates gods and he wants to kill them all. Thor is obviously a god, so it kind of makes sense. But we didn't see him in this trailer, which, I have no problem with. I didn't expect them to show Gore the God Butcher, but I thought it was really exciting. I don't think it was like the best trailer of all time, but it looked great. You could definitely tell Taika Waititi is, I hope I pronounced that right. You can definitely tell Taika is just sort of going in his bag on this one. It looks like they're really building upon the sort of comedic fun aspect that they had in Thor Ragnarok, because the two previous Thor films were really dark, really serious. And I think Chris Hemsworth even said that, like, he's starting to lose his love for playing the character. But now that we know that a whole new restructure of, that world of Asgard and everything, it's got him enthused. And I think he's even said that he would love to play this character for as long as he can. And I think a lot of that has to do with Taika taking over and directing Thor Ragnarok. So it looks like they're really building upon the like I said, the humor and the obviously the action and the sort of fun parts of Thor Ragnarok. And this looks great. We could tell that Thor is really trying to step away from being this god, and he really wants to understand, like, I need to know what I can do moving forward with my own life. I'm going to stop listening to other people tell me what I should do, and I'm going to sort of ride this wave, because, at this point, he's done everything, right? Like, he's fought with the Avengers, he's fought on Asgard, or he's done everything. He's been alive for, like, thousands of years. So at this point, it seems like, as he says in the trailer, he just wants to retire and just live at peace. But we see that, there are other things in store that are planned for him. And we all wanted to see a workout montage, Rocky style, from him being Fat Thor in Endgame to him being, jacked up Thor that we've all seen throughout the years of the MCU. And it looks like we're getting that. He's got the strongest Avenger cap on. Nice little callback to Thor Ragnarok when he's trying to sign into the Quinjet. And, he can't remember the password. And he's like, strongest Avenger. And then he says, what was the actual password? I think it was a reference to Point Break. I think it literally was Point Break, if I'm not mistaken, because I think he looks very much like one of the characters in that film. The music choice. I was really expecting to hear some kind of 80s music, maybe Thunderstruck or something, but we heard Sweet Child of Mine, and I thought it was great. When I heard Sweet Child of Mine, the first film that came to my mind was Step Brothers, when they're in the car and Will Ferrell's brother, him and his family are all singing Sweet Child of Mine, and he's like, I pay $1,300 a week for voice lessons, and this is what you give me? And then, yeah, that was fucking hilarious. But yeah, the music choice, great. And then I kind of already answered the question as to why the teaser trailer took so long to release. Now, could we see Loki in this film? It's hard to say. Obviously, Thor, Loki's brother, it's an obvious connection. He's been in every Thor film, but I think for the first time, they're not going to have Thor in this film. Now, I have nothing to sort of, validate that. We also haven't seen Doctor Strange, which I'm sure will probably answer some of that, possibly. Also, season 2 of Loki. There's a lot of storytelling that we've yet to see, and I think once we see that, then we'll obviously know. But just, my opinion, I don't think we're going to see him in Thor Love and Thunder. And quite frankly, I don't think I actually want to see him in Thor. I think it'd be nice to sort of see Thor go through this journey not knowing what's happening to Thor, or not knowing what's happening to Loki. Because actually right now, Thor is of the understanding that my brother's dead. We saw him get, mangled. We saw Thor witness his brother getting mangled by Thanos right in front of him in Thor, Avengers Infinity War, my bad. So he saw that happen. So right now he thinks his brother is dead. So it'd be really nice for them to have that film without Loki, or at the very least maybe have Loki show up in a post-credit scene, and that can build upon, maybe a 5th Thor film. Because I was talking to one of my friends about this, and, I didn't really think about it, but it kind of makes sense. With Taika taking over, it almost seems like he wants to make his trilogy of Thor films. So we may see 7 or 5 Thor films, right? I mean, maybe that 5th, that last one, then we'll see Loki and him team up again. But I got no idea about that. Could we see Beta Ray Bill? Now, for those of you who don't know who Beta Ray Bill is, it's another character in the comics. It is very similar to Thor, but he's almost like this... he almost kind of looks like a horse in a little bit of a way in terms of his like facial structure. What do they call those? Minotaurs? I think I could be wrong. Well, he's not a Minotaur. I think a Minotaur, I could be totally getting this name wrong and could totally be getting this sort of mythology wrong, but I think a Minotaur is like the sort of horse people that have basically, an example is the character from Narnia, right? I'm pretty sure that is a Minotaur. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I'm getting over my head here. But yeah, Beta Ray Bill is an extremely important character that is directly tied to Thor. In fact, he was actually going to be one of the main characters in Thor Ragnarok, but for whatever reason, they decided to take him out of the film, probably to save him for this. And you actually see when they're in that arena where, Thor fights Hulk, it shows all the previous champions that have won in this arena, and one of the sort of faces, the statues, was Beta Ray Bill's face in Thor Ragnarok. So that's a nice little hint, nod. So the character does exist. He is in this universe. We just haven't seen him yet. And I think we will see him here. And there's actually been a lot of buzz that Marvel could be using their deception again against us. And there's one shot in the trailer where it shows Thor and Korg watching the Guardians soar off into the sky, and probably that'll lead them off to the Guardians 3, but we see the shot of Thor and Korg watching them go away, fly off into the whatever atmosphere. But there's a lot of room, a lot of open space in that shot beside Thor and beside Korg, more specifically to the left of Thor. And we've seen in the trailers, we've seen in Spider-Man No Way Home, they edited out Andrew kicking the lizard, and you see in the trailer, obviously, both Spider-Man aren't there above and below Tom Holland's, but you could still see there's a lot of open space, and you could see that the lizard getting punched in the face by something invisible. And we obviously found out that was one of the Spider-Man kicking him in the face. So we could be seeing that again in this trailer, and it's probably likely. Whether it's Beta Ray Bill, it could be anybody. It could be Valkyrie for all we know. Yeah, so really looking forward to it. As for which film could be better, this or Doctor Strange, my money's on Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange is going to be a better film. Although I will say the 2-hour runtime for Doctor Strange, I was expecting it to be a little bit longer. Now, I mean, this is Sam Raimi directing this, so overall I'm not too worried. But it is kind of thought provoking. 2 hours for this film and all the things that are going to be happening with the Illuminati and Wanda's arc. And then obviously Doctor Strange itself. I think that's the interesting part of this film, right? There's with Doctor Strange, not to get off topic here, but we're seeing so much of these different stories being played out. I think some people, myself included, we kind of have to ground ourselves for a moment and say, this is a Doctor Strange film, right? Like it's kind of funny. Sometimes I just forget, like, this is a Doctor Strange film. I'm just like, I'm looking at the Illuminati, I'm looking at Wanda, I'm looking at all these different storylines happening. It's kind of funny, but excuse me. Let me know what you guys thought about Thor Love and Thunder. I'm very interested to see, are you excited for this? Did you think the trailer, was too short, or did you love the trailer like I did? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Up next, I'm going to do my review right now for The Northman. The Northman was a fantastic film. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been doing these sort of out-of-theater reactions, and I really enjoy them. They're quick, they're easy. I mean, they're right out of the theater. They don't really take much editing. I kind of just give my raw thoughts, and what immediately impacted me and how I felt walking out of the theater. And I did one for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I appreciate all of you pointing it out. It was just so funny how many of you pointed out that the fact that I said donut instead of bagel. I don't know why I said donut. It was kind of a mistake on my behalf, but I noticed that afterwards, and I was like, oh fuck, I said fucking donut. It's a fucking bagel. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But I also did an out of theater reaction for The Northman, and I kind of shared my thoughts in my sort of quick out of theater reaction. But I'm going to build upon that and talk about it right now in a little bit more depth. General thoughts: great film, one of the best films that have come out this year, and incredibly entertaining. There wasn't one moment where I was bored. I was kind of losing interest. I thought the length, the runtime was great. The movie was paced very, very well. And there was always something happening that was contributing to the story. There was no sort of periods where there was, meaningless subplots, like none of that. It was great. I've heard a lot of people talk about this comparison, but I felt this too. I thought of The Lion King, right? Because, so let me back up. The basic idea of this film is that this child witnesses his father, who's a king. He witnesses his father get murdered and get killed by his own brother, by the father's own brother, his uncle. So he witnesses his uncle murder his father, and basically he runs away. He leaves his family, his kingdom. He escapes, and basically this whole arc that he has growing up is he wants to get vengeance. He wants to avenge his father. So he becomes this warrior. He becomes this, this hunter, and his whole basically his whole purpose is to just build himself up so that he can kill his uncle, kill the man who killed his father. And if that rings a bell, it's because it should, because that's very similar to the plot of The Lion King. We see Simba's father, we see Simba, we see his father get killed by Scar, and he runs away. He obviously meets up with, it's been a year since I've seen the film, but I forget the people that he meets, and obviously it's a lot more lighthearted. It's a cartoon, but the sort of baseline plot is very similar. He watches his father get killed, runs away, comes back to get vengeance. He defeats Scar, who Scar is his uncle. Very, very similar to that. But there's some twists and turns, right? Now I'm gonna talk spoilers. I'm just gonna give you that warning. Not only does he want to obviously avenge his father, but he also wants to avenge his mother. But he actually comes to realize that his mom has always been on the uncle side. And in fact, she actually ends up becoming the wife of the uncle once his uncle killed his father. And they even have kids, and they have children and whatnot. And so it goes pretty deep. So his whole life, he's also been trying to, obviously kill the man that killed his dad, but he's also been trying to free his mom. And in fact, he says this line frequently throughout the film. He's like, I'll avenge you, father. I'll free your mother. I'll kill you, uncle, or something along the lines of that. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But so once he finally meets up with his mother, who's beautifully played by Nicole Kidman, she starts saying, like, your father was weak and he was a coward and things like that. And he's taken aback. He doesn't know what to expect, and he actually ends up killing her. And then an epic showdown between him and his uncle. Like, what an incredible fight. We saw the little snippets of that fight sequence in the trailer. There's like one scene when you see Skarsgård and he's like screaming, and you see in the background there's like this molten excuse me, there's this molten lava, and that's because they're actually fighting near a volcano. And there's also a lot of really rich mythology in this film. Very supernatural. We see once Skarsgård, I think I'd call him Peter Skarsgård. I think his name is Alexander Skarsgård, if that's the correct way to I think I made that mistake in my out of theater. In these out of theater reactions, I always say one thing that's just like not correct. But it is what it is. But yeah, I think his name is Alexander Skarsgård. I could still be wrong about that. I probably should have checked before the show, but fuck it. So Alexander Skarsgård, once he sees his father die as a child, we see his father, Ethan Hawke, we see him kind of go into this like astral plane, and we see it's almost like this tree, and in each branch of this tree there's other previous kings and queens and whatever, and people in this family tree. That's literally what it is. It's a family tree. And then we see that again and again through the film, and then towards the end of the film we see that Peter Skarsgård, as he's dying, he looks in this family tree and he sees, or not as he's dying, I think it's when he's on the boat with Anya Taylor-Joy. Sorry, I'm all over the place. By the way, Anya Taylor-Joy was incredible. It was nice to see her back with Robert Eggers in another film. When he's talking to Anya Taylor-Joy, he could see he could see his kids in this tree. He could see that they eventually become kings themselves. And he leaves Anya Taylor-Joy because he knows that while he would love to spend his life with her, he serves a more noble purpose. He has to get this job done, that he's not ready to abandon his life's mission, which is to get revenge against the man who killed his father. And yeah, that scene was magnificent. And the ending, where he chops off his head, like Skarsgård chops off his uncle's head, and his uncle is just standing there headless. But also you realize that his uncle was able to strike Skarsgård and killed him at the same time. And it was, and they foreshadow his death a couple times in the film by him saying, like, I will die on the battlefield. I will die in combat. And that's what happens. So, yeah. And just, touching upon the violence, this film does not shy away from the violence. When we first see Skarsgård and his sort of tribe, his gang, whatever you want to call them, they're invading the villages and just killing all of these women and children. It just literally, there's one disturbing scene when all these children get kind of grouped up in this, whatever little hut, and they light it on fire. And that, I almost had to turn away for a second. That was just brutal and disturbing. But yeah, Robert Eggers does not shy away from the violence, which is, I didn't know what to expect in regard to that, because his two other films, The Lighthouse and The Witch, they did have some violence, but it was very minimal, and it was typically only towards like the end of the film and the climax, when we see Robert Pattinson finally kill Willem Dafoe, and then when we see all the violence happening between Anya Taylor-Joy and all her family members in The Witch. Although there is that really, really gory scene in the beginning of The Witch where the baby first gets kidnapped by the witch, and we see, like, I don't even want to think about that scene. That scene always makes me cringe. I can never watch it. I always have to turn away. But we've never seen as much violence in his previous films as we do in this. And I think the fight sequences and the choreography, I think, was very well directed. And I mentioned this in my out of theater reaction, but Robert Eggers, along with Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan, he's like one of my 3 favorite directors in Hollywood. But as for Robert Eggers' other films and where I think these rank. Now, I don't really like to do the whole comparing thing too much, but for the sake of a podcast, it's a fun conversation to have. I do think this film is better than The Witch, but I don't think it's better than The Lighthouse. I still think The Lighthouse for me is like it's a top 10 film, top 5 for me personally. I love The Lighthouse. It's one of the few pieces of art that inspired me to want to be an actor, just solely off of Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe's performance. And speaking of Willem Dafoe, he's in this film as well, very briefly. And Robert Eggers, he loves to just throw these little fart sequences in his films. Like, I did not expect that at all. They're almost doing this initiation in the beginning of the film where Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe they're sort of preparing Skarsgård as a child to get himself ready to be the future king. And whether it's Ethan Hawke or no, I think it's Skarsgård's character. He like farts in front of Willem Dafoe and Ethan Hawke, and they're like, Willem Dafoe or Ethan Hawke's like, that's the scent of a future king or something. Is super weird. The whole audience was laughing. Me and my friends we were dying of laughter. It was fucking hilarious. So yeah, very similar, because in The Lighthouse, there's quite a few scenes of Willem Dafoe is just farting all the time, and you could just see the disdain and the frustration in Robert Pattinson's facial expression. He's like, I got to be around this guy because that's the only other person he has to talk to on this little island, this lighthouse island, whatever you want to call it. So anyways, yeah, I think it's overall, because this is only his third film he's ever directed, feature film. I'd say number 3, The Witch. Number 2, I would say, I'm drawing a blank, this film, The Northman. Number 1, The Lighthouse. So Moon Knight. 4 episodes are out right now. And when the show first premiered, a lot of the really big YouTubers and a lot of the other people with very large platforms were given the privilege to watch the first 4 episodes. So now we're all officially caught up to them. Now, I thought that was pretty interesting in the beginning, because for all these other Marvel shows, at least to my recollection, most of the critics and most of the really big YouTubers only got to see the first 2 episodes. So in this case, we got to see the first 4, or they got to see the first 4. So it probably means that the final 2 episodes, there's something pretty big in store. Now, excuse me. I don't want to get ahead of myself and speculate on, could this big other MCU character pop up, because we've learned, or at least I've learned my lesson from that. I got my hopes up for Doctor Strange and WandaVision. For Loki, I got my hopes up for Thor. That didn't happen. So I don't want to get my hopes up for that this time. But that doesn't mean that we still couldn't have some big surprises. Maybe we're introduced to a character we haven't seen yet. There's been some discussion that we may not see Blade, but we could get some sort of Blade tie-in, because this character has very, very close ties to Blade in the comics, and to even Black Knight from Eternals to a lesser degree. So, I think we're definitely in store for some very big surprises. Now, overall, my thoughts on the show so far is I think it is a very, very good show. I still think Loki is probably my favorite, but I think it's the second best Marvel show yet. I think it's better than WandaVision. Not by much. WandaVision, each episode left me wanting more. And it certainly does that for Moon Knight, but I feel like there was a little bit more mystery behind WandaVision, because we were traversing through different decades and we were always asking ourselves, why is this happening, right? And then Sword was implemented, and then we had all these other characters showing up, and then we had Quicksilver from the other, the other X-Men universe. So there's so many different mystery. I feel like there's a little bit less mystery in Moon Knight, but make no mistake, there are still lots of questions that I and many other viewers have. And yeah, I'm going to quickly kind of discuss episode 4. Actually, I think this was a nice way to segue into that. So your spoiler warning is right now. I've heard a lot of people, specifically Robert Meyer Burnett on the John Campea show, he's talked about how he believes that, and he's very, very familiar with the Moon Knight character. I think probably more than anybody I've ever seen on the internet. He knows so much about the character, and he's been saying for a very, very long time, ever since the show premiered, he says that I don't believe what we are seeing is actually real, so to speak. Like basically what he's trying to say is he thinks that everything we've seen up until episode 4 has possibly been a figment of Mark Spector's imagination, right? Maybe he's conjuring all of this up in his mind. And we're revealed that at the end of episode 4, but in a very interesting way, right? We see that Mark Spector has been spending this whole time, or at least we think, in this mental health hospital institution. But then again, Is he really in that mental health? Is he really in that institution? Pardon me. We don't know, right? So in a way, Robert Meyer Burnett was correct, but also this could also be some sort of illusion at the same time, right? I know it's kind of confusing how I'm explaining it, but if you've seen the episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now, I also want to discuss the potential of a third personality. Now, in the comics, Moon Knight has three personalities. He is Mark Spector, who's the main kind of predominant personality. He's the one that is he is Moon Knight rather. Then we have Stephen Grant, who in this show we see he has the British dialect, and he's the Mr. Knight persona. And then there's a third named Jake Lockley. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, the research that I've seen, Jake Lockley is like a cab driver. He almost sounds like Travis Bickle, this sort of grizzled cab driver who's traversing the streets, kind of trying to get inside scoops on crime that's happening, so his other personas can pursue it, right? Which is actually quite interesting, to be quite honest with you. And there have been many hints to a third personality. I think the biggest hint to me, there's a couple of some of the ones off the top of my head where there was that scene going on in that cliff where Mark was interrogating those whatever people that he was fighting, and then you see he kind of transitions to personalities, and then when he wakes back up as Mark, you could see he's killed, two of these guys, and then he speaks to Steven and he says, "I didn't do that. Was that you?" And then Steven says, "That wasn't me." So clearly that's hinting at a third personality. And then also when Mark has that council with all the other Egyptian gods, Arthur Harrow shows up and he says, "Who knows how many personalities this man has?" Like he's trying to explain to the council that this man is deeply troubled and he's struggling trying to cope with all these different personalities. So that was a direct hint. And then I think the biggest hint of all was at the end of the fourth episode where first we see Stephen Grant come out of one tomb, and then when Stephen Grant and Mark Spector, which is by the way a great shot, you see Oscar Isaac playing obviously two versions of himself, but the editing it makes it seem like they're both in the same room interacting with each other. But then we see Stephen Grant come out of that tomb, and then as him and Mark are walking down the hallway, they look off into one room, and then they see that there's another tomb, and you could tell that there's something trying to break out of it, but we don't get it yet. And I imagine we'll probably see that in the third, in the fifth episode, maybe even the sixth. Who knows? So that clearly is. There's obviously a third personality, and it's probably going to be Jake Lockley. It could be, a new character. Marvel might take some liberty and create a new personality. Excuse me, I take a sip of my coffee. Or who knows, there could be a fourth personality. There could be a fifth personality. We have no idea. I guess we'll find out tonight, because for me, I'm on the East Coast. So if you're in the West Coast, like if you're in LA or California or whatnot, you're going to be able to see the episode of Moon Knight, you're going to be able to see the episode of Moon Knight at midnight. Whereas for me, since I'm in the East, I have to stay up till 3 a.m. But for me, I think the show is so interesting that I think I will stay up tonight till 3 a.m. to watch that fifth episode. Now, I was looking online, and I don't know if this is a direct quote from Oscar Isaac, but I saw something. It might be a direct quote, but I saw something about Oscar Isaac discussing how, or possibly hinting that, if there is a third personality, will there be a third different kind of suit? Now, that is pretty interesting. Now, from what I've seen of the comics, there's only really been two suits. There's been the Moon Knight suit, like the main Moon Knight suit, and then there's been the Mr. Knight suit. Now, apparently the Mr. Knight suit is actually a pretty recent kind of iteration in the comics. I think, it was created, within the last 10 years, if my memory serves me correctly. Like I said, I don't read I'm not a comic book reader. I just go off of what I see from, YouTubers like, Emergency Awesome and John Campia, and then I'll even do my own research, and I'll look on, comic book radio, comic book reader, whatever CBR stands for, that website. So I'm just going off of the things that I've read without actually kind of reading the comics. It's not really my thing personally. But I love watching the movies, and that's what we're here to talk about. Now, let me just make sure I checked off all the boxes here. I touched upon other MCU characters. I'm not, like I said, not really going to go into that. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't even know who would show up. However, though, I have heard one rumor, take it with a massive grain of salt. We heard rumors that Doctor Strange was going to be in WandaVision. That never happened. But there have been rumors, I say that in air quotes if you're listening and not watching, that Mark Ruffalo will show up. Now, the reason why I think this one is actually has a decent chance is because we've been seeing Mark Ruffalo pop up in quite a few other Marvel projects recently. And I've actually mentioned, I think he's starting to take... He's always had a leadership role in the Avengers, but I think now that Tony and Steve are gone, I think he's really kind of stepped up and he's really adopted the head of leadership role of the Avengers. Not like the main leader of the Avengers, but I think he's one of the top people overseeing the Avengers. And we saw him pop up in Shang-Chi, and we have She-Hulk coming up. So we have heard that he's going to be in quite a few other Marvel properties. And when he popped up in Shang-Chi, he kind of introduced Shang-Chi to, like, there are other beings like you, like, welcome to the circus, I think that's what he said, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think that's possible, but like I said, I don't want to get my hopes up. But overall, I'm really, really enjoying Moon Knight. And now, should Moon Knight get a second season? This has been, talked about. I think this is an interesting conversation to have. Now, I was watching the John Campea show, and they discussed how I think for Emmy, nominations, Moon Knight was listed as a limited series. So I think that sort of indirectly confirms that no, the show will not be getting a second season. However, though, Oscar Isaac is only he's only signed on for one season. Now, I don't think people should panic around that, because we've seen this many, many times, especially with these big movie star actors in series. They typically only sign on for one season because they sort of want to judge how the show is going to succeed. Like, it's different from, like, signing on for a multi-film contract. With a show, they want to see how the audience is going to engage and how they're going to feel about it. And then if it is really successful, then they'll sign on for the second season. However, though, even if Moon Knight is incredibly successful, so I think it's already worth a second season if Marvel wanted to do it. But I honestly, there's no doubt we're going to see Moon Knight return in the MCU, obviously. Like, Kevin Feige has probably been planning for Moon Knight for years, just like everything else in the MCU, right? I think he has bigger plans for Moon Knight, and to be quite frank with you, I would love to see him get his own movie. I think it would be a great way to use this show to build the foundation for the character, establish all these different personalities that he has, and all the different attributes of the character, build the world up around him, and then maybe give him his own movie. I think that would be really, really interesting, and I think a good example of that, now different, but similar in some respects, is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? We've seen Sam Wilson many times throughout the MCU. He's been more of a supporting character in many of the films, like, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Civil War. But now they've built his character up, they built the foundation, and now he's the new Captain America. And now we know for a fact that he, Anthony Mackie, is the new Captain America, and he's getting his own Captain America film. So I think they could sort of take that approach with Moon Knight. And I think they could use this series, build him up. The show isn't necessarily an origin tale, because we find out that he has already been Moon Knight for years, but they're still sort of building his character. And I think after this show ends, I mean, also depending on where the show finishes, like how the finale plays out, I think, along with him appearing in other properties, because we know he will obviously be a part of the MCU. He is going to appear probably in the Avengers at some point. I think it'd be really interesting to see him, instead of getting a second season, get his own movie, right? Whether that happens, I'm not too sure. But that's where I would like to see that character go moving forward past this show. So up next is my review for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like I mentioned before, I did an out of theater reaction, and I made the funny mistake of calling what was the bagel, I called it a donut, but I did that by mistake. I meant to call it bagel. But anyways, beyond that, I discussed how I thought this was one of the best films this year. I think it's probably, if I had to give it like a ranking right now of the films that have come out, the films that I've seen, I would say my top three, number one still would be The Batman. I think The Batman, I personally think it's better than The Dark Knight. I've said that before. I will defend that, and for as long as I will, until another Batman film comes out that's better than that. So I think The Batman is number one. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is the second best film. And then I think, excuse me, pardon me. And then I think The Northman is number three. Pardon my burp. I think The Northman's number three. But anyways, what are some things I could touch on here? Yeah, messages and themes. This film relies a lot on just sort of conveying a message that the audience can relate to, right? There's so many characters all the characters in this film are very grounded, and I think some of the messages to me, I'd say gratitude, just being thankful for what you have, right? We often, as a society, we always want to look ahead, and I do this too. We all want the whether it's something materialistically or a destination, right? We all want to strive for getting that next best thing. And that's, to a degree, that's good, right? I think being comfortable is a very dangerous spot to be in life. Absolutely. But sometimes I feel like we don't know where to draw this line, and then it ends up taking away from our personal happiness and our well-being. Right, we cannot continue on, or we feel like our life doesn't have meaning unless we've reached that bar, right? And it's like I said, it's always good to strive for something better, something to improve your life, but there also has to be, this sort of degree that you're able to, you can go for that, but also find enjoyment in the everyday things that happen within your life. So I think gratitude definitely is one of those things that I pulled from this film. Discovery, right? Exploring new things, and we see that a lot, right? Michelle Yeoh is always kind of pondering on if she had made different choices early in her life in simple interactions, right? If she had decided to, not move away from her home with her husband, what would her life have been like, right? That sort of what if scenario. And we see that a lot in that film, where she's trying to kind of traversing the multiverse and seeing all these different versions of herself if she had made different decisions, right? So I'd say discovery, I would say adventure, very similar to discovery, and just, learning new things about yourself and taking risks and all this craziness, adventure. And then even nihilism a little bit. Now, someone in the comments brought up nihilism. Excuse me, I forget what your name is, but I want to give you credit. That really put it in perspective to me. I didn't exactly know how to put it together. I knew that there was definitely and when I say nihilism, I refer to just like feeling as if, like, I mean, for those of you who know what nihilism means, it basically just means like you feel like nothing in the world matters. It's a very dangerous way to live. And I think that is definitely representative of the antagonist of the film, which is like Michelle Yeoh's. I keep saying Michelle Yeoh. I don't remember her character's name, so I'm just gonna refer to her real name, Michelle Yeoh. Michelle's daughter in the film was like the main antagonist, who's sort of going through all the different multiverses and causing chaos, basically almost like a version of Kang the Conqueror. She definitely is like a physical, her character basically represents nihilism. Her whole thing is like nothing really matters, right? So yeah, those are kind of the messages and the themes that I pulled from the film. And like I said, shout out to whoever brought up, they explained it. A lot of people in the comments section of the out of theater reaction provided some great insight and some great points, but one of those comments specifically brought up nihilism, and just how basically, I'm paraphrasing what you said, individual in the comments, but they basically just reference hopelessness, and I totally get that from that character's perspective. Oscar potential. I also was having a conversation with somebody in the comments, and I mentioned how I could definitely see this film getting, lots of Oscar buzz, and I almost right now, if the Oscars happen today, which would be ridiculous because we're like 1 quarter through this year, maybe 2 quarters through this year, I would definitely say this film is going to be right there for best original screenplay, maybe even best picture, depending on how the rest of the year pans out, maybe even other awards. But for me, I think definitely best original screenplay. I think the film was great. After I watched it, I felt a sense of peace because, like, sometimes in life we let the tiniest things impact our whole day, sometimes our whole week, and in some small cases our whole month. And what I mean by little things, like, it could be something as, I'm not speaking for me personally, I'm just speaking in broad terms, but it could be something as little as, like, someone cut you off on the highway or something, or you had gotten some kind of road rage argument with somebody, or, somebody, I don't know, something little like that, right? Or you spilt milk on your shirt, right? Little things like that. For some people, these little things can really kind of ruin our mood and our behavior for an extensive period of time, when in reality it shouldn't, right? It's good to worry about things. It's especially in terms of like your career. It's good to care about things, obviously, but letting these little things kind of dictate and shift your mood and kind of ruin your day, that's taking away from your overall happiness. And what I immediately felt out of the film was like, I'm constantly stressing about these little assignments from school, and I'm constantly stressing about, like my podcast and all that. And it's just like, and this kind of goes back to gratitude, just kind of appreciate the things that you have, right? And don't let these little minute things kind of get in the way of appreciating what you really have in life, right? That's kind of how I took about it. Obviously, there's like, serious things that you should obviously worry about extensively, but I'm saying, like, in terms of the little things, like, don't let that kind of, shift your whole day or shift your attitude, right? So that's sort of how I felt. I think overall it's a fantastic film, and I would certainly love to see it again. I went in with very, very little expectations. I had heard, the buzz around the film, and I heard it had been getting and still is getting great reviews, but I kind of went into it with a very open mind, and I think that was great for me. I walked out just very pleased and incredibly surprised on how fantastic this film was. So now we have reports and rumors. Like I mentioned, take anything like this with a grain of salt. I know you've probably heard that term 1,000 times, but it really does hold true, because we've seen many rumors like this of, casting rumors and this guy playing this character, and then sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It just kind of fades off into the wind. But I think it's still worth discussing, and I think it's actually pretty exciting if it is real. And it's been coming from some pretty credible websites. Now, it hasn't come from Variety or Deadline or, the Hollywood Reporter. And if it came from there, it's like 99% true then. But it hasn't. So, as I mentioned, kind of just, approach the conversation, with still being skeptical. But anyways, let me get to it. Andrew Lincoln. For those of you who don't know who that is, if you've seen The Walking Dead, and I'm talking like the first 6 seasons, I stopped watching after like season 5. But the main character of The Walking Dead, I think his name is Rick, that actor, Andrew Lincoln, is apparently in serious discussion or negotiations to join the MCU for a role that's unknown at the time. So I think he's a really, really good actor, and I think he's a pretty cool choice, because I think he's very... I created a list here that I'm going to go over different characters I think he could be playing. He really is, he seems like an actor that can kind of just be almost like a chameleon and just play in many different kinds of roles. He could be any one of these characters or someone completely different that I don't have on my list. But I compiled some potential characters that I think he could be playing. And then I'm going to run through the list, and then I'm going to actually give my prediction as to which one I think he's going to be playing. So first, I got Magneto. I got Wolverine. I got Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Doom, and Nova. So, who do I think he will be playing? Now, I want to say this before I give my pick. I know I said Doctor Doom, but there's a couple reasons to sort of counter that. A couple rumors. Number one, there's been some reports that Doctor Doom will make an appearance in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which is basically almost wrapped filming. So I think it'd be a little bit too late to suddenly cast a character that big and so late in the game in production for Black Panther 2. Now, like I said, that's just a rumor. That's just a report. Who knows? There's also been reports that Namor could be the main villain of Wakanda Forever. But then also Grace Randolph, who's another really big YouTuber in the movie space. And I think I'm pretty sure it was her. I think she reported that someone she knows in the industry, like a source, told her that Marvel has apparently, like, behind the scenes casted a really, really big villain that, like, no one even, like, knows about. So Doctor Doom is like a damn near Thanos level villain. So, and that story came out, and that, announcement that came out a long time ago. So unless we're just hearing about it now, but I highly doubt that. So maybe it's not Doctor Doom, or maybe it is. Who knows? Before I give my actual prediction, I'll just kind of go through each of my predictions, and I'll sort of break down, why it could be him, why it couldn't. Here we go. Magneto. So we know at the very least we're going to see one mutant in an upcoming film, which is Professor X from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. We could possibly see even other X-Men characters return. I don't think we're going to see Wolverine. Quite frankly, I don't really want to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I really would rather... I'd rather us move on from the old X-Men, and I really want the MCU to introduce a whole new set of X-Men characters. They could bring some of them back just for this one-off, just for like the Doctor Strange film, but I don't want to see them kind of return entirely, have another whole 3-4 more films. I want to see them move on from the original X-Men. But so I get here. So I guess let me switch around my comments a little bit. I don't like if Hugh Jackman is in this film, which I don't think he is, but if he is, like, yeah, I'll smile, I'll grin, and I'll enjoy it as long as it's just an appearance for that film. But then also on the other side of the token, he had such a great conclusion to his whole character and his whole arc in Logan, and I think bringing him back this soon could be a little, problematic maybe, and it might take away from how emotional and how great that conclusion to his character was. We'll have to see. But then again, Professor X is in the film. More specifically, Charles Xavier, who we know is very, very close with the Wolverine character in the comics and in the X-Men films. Now, Wolverine. Speaking of Wolverine, I think he could be playing a new version of Wolverine. I really, really do. He is kind of older, but not old enough that he can't play this character for like 10, 15 years. I think he can. However, he wouldn't be my first pick. But as fans, we like to jump to the gun when we hear a fan casting, and we've seen it many times. When Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker, many people back then were up in arms about it. And then, even going way back when Michael Keaton, obviously this is much before my time, but I was watching videos of fans on the streets, like news reporters were going around when the reports were first coming out that Michael Keaton was going to be Batman back in like 1985. And many people in the streets were like, he's not big enough. He doesn't look brooding. He doesn't look strong. And you know, Michael Keaton for a while was a lot of people's favorite Batman. And for many people, it still is their favorite Batman to this day. So I don't want to jump the gun, and I'm certainly not. I think he would make a great Wolverine, but I don't think he'd be my first choice. I think I've been saying this for a while. If I was a casting director, my top 2 candidates that I would look for to play a new Wolverine would either be, I think his name is Taron Egerton from the Rocketman film and the Kingsman films, or what's his name from Sons of Anarchy? I'm drawing a blank on his name. Charlie Hunnam. Charlie Hunnam would be a great Wolverine in my opinion. But then again, if they want to go for more of a comic book accurate representation of the character, maybe go with someone a little bit shorter, because Wolverine in the comics is a relatively shorter individual, where Hugh Jackman's this like towering 6'5", individual. But they're always taking kind of they're always drawing inspiration for the comic books, but never just doing a copy and paste. So I imagine we'll probably see something similar with Wolverine. Mr. Fantastic. I could definitely see him playing Mr. Fantastic. And we know that film is in development, and it kind of makes sense from a timeline perspective. Like, we haven't heard really any news about the film. We know what's coming. They announced it when they were announcing the whole Phase 4 slate, and that was like 3-4 years ago almost at this point. So I imagine they're probably, Kevin Feige and everybody at Marvel is probably trying to get the ball rolling on that. So it would make sense that he's playing Mr. Fantastic, and he sort of already has, the kind of gray hair, like Doctor Strange on, the little side stripes. And I mean, they could put that on any actor. That doesn't really matter. So yeah, Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Doom. I already talked about Doctor Doom. Nova's a stretch. But they did just announce, there have been reports from, I think like Variety and all the other, I could be wrong, I don't want to say that for a fact, but I'm pretty sure the big trades just announced that Nova is officially is officially in development, whether it's a TV show or a movie, that remains to be seen. But for those of you who don't know, Nova is essentially, the surface level storyline is Nova is like the last member of the Nova Corps planet and like organization, and we've seen the Nova Corps in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and even in, I think, in Avengers Infinity War, that whole planet gets destroyed, so he's pretty much the last one left. And I guess he would be looking for his vengeance, because Thanos destroyed all his people and destroyed his whole planet. So yeah, I'm sure I'm probably missing some things, and I might have got something wrong there with my Nova explanation, but that's just sort of what I know about the character. But who do I think will be playing it? I think he's going to be playing Mr. Fantastic. Now, there's been reports that we're going to see a version of Mr. Fantastic in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And in fact, all the reports, and to be honest, I would bet like $100 on this. I think we're going to see John Krasinski as Reed Richards in this in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But there's also been reports that John Krasinski is just coming in just for this film, just to be an alternate version of the character, because apparently he just doesn't want to sign on for like an 8-6 film deal. He just doesn't want to commit to that, which is totally understandable, to each his own. So we thought it'd be fun to come in, and fans obviously have wanted John Krasinski to play Mr. Fantastic for years, so it'd be a nice homage to the fans and give them what they want, and then he can dash, and then we'll get a new version, an actual developed version of the Fantastic Four. And potentially Andrew Lincoln could be playing our, new form of Reed Richards. We'll have to see. Or he may even be introduced in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. We have no idea. But yeah, so those are the rumors. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think this whole report and rumor is a load of horse shit? Or do you think there's some validity to this? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyway, so before we wrap up today's episode, I thought it'd be fun to do a little ranking right now of some of the MCU characters, and I've created 3 categories here, from most powerful to most important to the smartest. Now I'm going to give 3 spots, right? So third, second place, first place for each one of these subcategories. And yeah, I just thought it'd be a fun little discussion to have, given where the MCU is right now and where it continues to build. And obviously, this list will continuously change throughout the course of the films and the different TV shows that are coming out. And of course, this is just my list. Your list may be completely different, or it may be identical to mine. So feel free to disagree, feel free to agree, and let me know in the comments what you guys think below. Starting off with most powerful. Number 3, I have Doctor Strange. Number 2, I have Captain Marvel. Number 1, I have Thor. This is pretty tough. That number 1 spot I think is almost interchangeable between Captain Marvel and Thor. But for me, I sided with Thor just because when Thor is in that full-on God mode where where he's incorporating the lightning from the sky and everything, he's just in just full form, whatever. And you could say the same for Captain Marvel when I think it's called when she's in like her full-on binary form. I think that's the terminology for it. She's unstoppable as well. So even if somebody disagreed and would rather have Captain Marvel at number 1, I would not argue with that at all. But for me personally, I think I'm just going to go with Thor because they have similar powers, but Thor also has Stormbreaker. So let's not even forget that. That's a whole other, almost entity in and of itself in terms of power. So I think just that kind of elevates him above. Most important, I'd say Bruce Banner, just because of his, his mind. And I think he's always been that person that's been behind the sciences. He's always been sort of around the construction of certain things, along with Tony and all that. But I think definitely Bruce Banner is the third most important. Second, I would say Ant-Man, because of where we could be going with Quantumania and in the sort of Kane the Conqueror storyline. And obviously in Endgame, his technology, and not necessarily his, obviously, the Pym particle wasn't his creation, but it's what's associated with his character. That was basically the tool that the Avengers used to go back in time to bring everybody back. So without the Pym particles and without Ant-Man and, Michael Douglas's character and the Wasp, I forget their names, but without their technology, really that whole film and that whole story wouldn't even be possible, or at least it would have to be done in a completely different way. So Ant-Man, and then number 1, I would say definitely Doctor Strange. And I think the most obvious reason is where they could be going with the multiverse of madness and exploring the multiverse, exploring different versions of characters, bringing in new characters potentially, seeing returning characters. I think he's incredibly important, and he, just in terms of protecting the reality of our planet and of our universe, as it's been mentioned many times in the films. So so just kind of run through the list here again of most important. Bruce Banner, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange. Now, just want to let you know, this is for like right now. This is for like where we are currently at in the MCU. Not like of all time. This is just right now. Because obviously the list would be much different. Smartest, I have number 3, Rhodey. I think Rhodey is incredibly intelligent, and I definitely think we're going to see that a lot more come to the center stage, especially with his own show coming out called Armor Wars. I think we're definitely going to see that a lot more showcased. Second, Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange is an incredibly smart individual, and I think after the film, we're probably going to see him expand his knowledge, and there's even rumors that he's gonna read the Darkhold, and he's gonna sort of study that and study the Book of Ashanti, which we know is gonna be in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So I think once at the end of this film, he's already one of the smartest, if not you could argue the smartest person in the MCU. I think he's gonna be that much more smarter after having a better understanding of the multiverse and all the dangers and all the things involved with it. And number 1, Bruce Banner. I think Bruce Banner is the smartest individual in the MCU for, a couple of reasons that I've already mentioned. I just think, what he was able to do with just his own body, being able to sort of grab, this brooding side of him being the Hulk and use his, the arguably the most valuable part of him is his mind and his intellect, and compile those two together to create Professor Hulk. I think that right there was enough to just let you know that he's one of, if not the smartest individuals in the MCU. And along with the Pym particles, he also helped orchestrate all of that along with Ant-Man and along with Captain America in Endgame. So I definitely think I definitely think he's one of, if not, in my opinion, I think he's the smartest character in the MCU that we have right now. But anyways, guys, that is going to wrap up episode 25, I think it is. 25 or 26. I'm losing count at this point. If you stuck around for this long, thank you very much for listening. And I hope you all have a great evening, day, morning, wherever you are watching this or listening. And I will see you on episode 26.